In the past, Paul Revere was under construction to warn us, one, if by land.
You gotta hear about this. Go from idea to illustration faster with generative AI and Adobe Illustrator. Generate custom graphics. Create seamless pattern.
Ruin my plan. Yeah, I hate when that thing happens like that. Try it again.
In the past, Paul Revere was under construction to warn us, one, if by land. Two, if by sea. But that is history. Now we need to know more and move on. Now we have to think about three, if by air, and four, if by internet. The British are coming. The British are coming.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the live stream. Typical me. I always seem to have myself a computer problem. So I want to welcome you all to the live stream and welcome on board our wonderful invited and very intelligent guest, one of my favorite Brits, Ian Evarard from ARC Gold, Silver, and Osmium. Did I get it right this time?
Silver, gold, osmium.
Silver, gold, and osmium. Why I get that backwards all the time, I'll never know. It must be connected to the internet and computers. That's why I get it mixed up. So welcome, Ian.
Thank you, Tiger.
So let's see here. I'm going to switch screens. No, I don't like that. So as you can tell, we brought a lot of British material out for you today.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to have a wonderful program scheduled for you today. Let me say hello to everyone here in the chat. Welcome, Great Scott, Darren Ottman, Amy Harrell, Sailor Stacking. I said that one. Lisa Anderson, Joseph Lopez, Amy, I always said Amy Harrell, Michael Stacking, and I think Constitutional Stacker. That's the first time I've seen you here, Constitutional. Welcome. Metal Matt, member for 3 months. Welcome. So we're going to start off with bringing up the subject about Ian's going to talk about a very interesting subject, plus anything he wants to talk about silver, gold, osmium. I want you all to feel free to ask questions. And some basic rules. For every $100 in Super Chat, I'll give away an ounce of silver. For every 50 likes, I'll give away 50 cents of Constitutional, your choice. 1 of a half, 2 of 2 quarters, and 5 of 5 dimes, or 5 of dimes. No swearing. If you swear, you have to put $2 in the Super Chat. If I swear, I'll put a dime in the curse bowl, which will go to someone at the next big event giveaway. You may voice your political opinions, but keep it clean. Mods, if someone steps out of line, give them a warning. Second time, time out. Third time, time out. And if they do it 4 times, time them out for 24 hours. Okay, so with that being said, welcome everyone. And let's see here, Lisa Anderson, welcome to the Tiger Club, Lisa. Amy Harrell, member for 3 months. Welcome everyone. So what's up, Ian?
Same. Lots of noise on the markets, isn't there? Lots of volatility. Some more interesting information about the silver supply or lack of silver supply seems to be coming out each day. I saw an article which was of particular interest to me because I suspected this was happening 2 years ago, that China is buying silver concentrate and silver doré bars straight from the mines in South America. And so that's not directly affecting the spot price because it's a pretty invisible transaction, but it will dramatically affect the supply.
Well, now that's a trick I didn't even think about. And it makes perfectly good sense.
I suspected it was happening 2 years ago because there was reports of refiners purchasing 1,000-ounce good delivery silver bars on the secondary market and then selling them to their industrial buyers. And then I thought, well, why would a refiner whose business model is to make a good margin from taking silver below spot in a concentrate or a dory bar in a non-pure form, purifying it, turning it into 1,000-ounce bars, and then that's their business model. And one thought I had at the time was, well, maybe there's a lack of concentrate and dory bars getting to the refiners. So to keep their clients happy, they were searching for silver already refined and cast into 1,000-ounce bars. So whether that was happening or not 2 years ago, it seems very clear now that countries are buying the silver concentrate and the dory bars before they get into the system. So that's just destroying even more production capacity.
Wow. I wouldn't have thought that. I guess I don't think devious enough. But it makes perfectly good sense. You don't have to report it when it comes straight out of the mines. That's what after it's been refined into something else.
Yeah.
Then you have to have it labeled and followed and everything.
And possibly even the mines, it might not be even a recorded transaction if they're just selling a truckload of rock. It's
Wow.
So Amy asks how much is spot. So the weekend fix $28.56.
$28.50?
$28.56.
How much is gold going for nowadays?
Oh, I didn't check what gold closed at. I can check quickly. It reached an all-time high in the British pound today on the live market, which was interesting. So it's not just the dollar that is falling in purchasing power. The pound must have not done very well today. Let's just pull up on my phone. Decides to load. So gold closed at $2,442.60.
Welcome, Mr. and Mrs. West Texas Stacker. So that's say it one more time. 24 what?
$2,442.60.
Oh, okay.
So we're close to the all-time dollar high, but nowhere near the genuine currency debasement level. So gold has a long way to go, in silver even further.
That's true. So I'm okay. For those who are, if you have a new person come in, knows nothing, absolutely zip about gold and silver, is now starting to wake up and find out, the currency is a mess, the government's a mess, and they're asking you about everything. What should I buy? What should I buy? What would you give the advice of a new stacker?
What would I give as advice, Tiger? Oh, wow. I think the first thing I ask people is what is their expectations? I want to try and get an idea of what their personality is. It's not the ideal thing if you probably going to need to sell it next month to pay a bill or pay for your rent. You probably don't want to be using that to buy silver now. So first, I want to find out what people's objectives are and timescales are, and then go from there. But I think at the moment, the lowest premium product makes sense for a first purchase.
Understood. And I agree with you for the most part. I'm a firm believer that everybody should try to clean up their debt as much as possible. But if you don't own anything, I think getting 40 ounces of silver as a start, and then working on trying to get your stuff in order. I would never tell anyone to do it the way I do it. But my situation is really weird. I've got family over in Ukraine that I'd like to get out, and if they can get here, I'm going to have approximately 4 mouths to feed. And if SHTF hits shortly after that, I'm probably going to need as much silver as I can get my hands on to buy small things such as food and supplies. So I'm working on killing out my debt, but I wouldn't recommend everyone do it the way I do it because my situation is different. I'd recommend you get 40 ounces of silver, preferably in small pieces because you're going to be buying small. 1 ounce purchases, okay, you're going to save some money that way. But what happens if you have to buy small? Dog World, thank you for the $10 super chat. And as always, I'm your #1 fan. So that was the wife. So basically, that's my approach to it. But we're also going to be here talking about something that is really interesting. Ian shared with me an article that I'm going to put up on the screen right now for you all to look at. And this is from a fellow. I'm going to let Ian take over on this conversation. I'm just new to it. This is his baby. Have at it.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I give credit to coming across this on Monaco 64, I think, probably 2.5 years ago. And it stunned me. It shouldn't have done because my suspicions and looking at how the financial world works and the deception and the feeling that governments never were really in control of anything much. But when I read this and I realized this was a direct quotation from a speech pretty well 100 years ago now, 1924, and it's just a few sentences, but it covers a lot of ground and it explains, it fills in a lot of gaps, and it is actual proof of what a lot of us have suspected all along, I think. Shall I read it out, Tiger?
Have at it.
Okay. Capital must protect itself in every possible way, both by combination and legislation. Debts must be collected, mortgages foreclosed as rapidly as possible. When, through the process of law, the common people lose their homes, they will become more docile and more easily governed through the strong arm of the government applied by a central power of wealth under leading financiers. These truths are well known among our principal men, who are now engaged in forming an imperialism to govern the world. And this next one is really relevant, I think, with how divided our nation is. By dividing the voter through the political party system, we can get them to expend their energies in fighting for questions of no importance. It is thus by discrete action we can secure for ourselves that which has been so well planned and so successfully accomplished. So this speech was given by, he was knighted later, Sir Montague Norman, the governor of Bank of England. He was governor from 1916 to 1944, an incredibly powerful and connected man. And the speech, it was to the American Bankers Association in New York. So there's many things we can learn from here. What really hit me was the order of power that it seems to clearly say. It says you've got the strong arm of the government applied by a central power of wealth under leading financiers. So that clearly says the leading financiers are in charge of the government, and they're using the government to pass whatever laws, whatever, using law to basically to control the population. And part of this control is by making the population unaware of what is going on. And part of the keeping people unaware is to keep them fighting each other. And if you think about it now, not only does half the nation fight the other half of the nation over which animal they follow, whether they're a donkey or an elephant. I mean, isn't there a clue in that it's all, that's a joke in itself, isn't it? You can be a donkey or an elephant, and you're on one side, you're on the other side. You fight each other whilst we form an imperialism to rule the world. Now, this was 100 years ago. I think they've had great success. I mean, Montague Normandy even boasts it's been so successfully accomplished in 1924.
Yeah.
So I don't think this problem has gone away. I'm just going to...
Let's go back a little further. Was it not Caesar that said divide and conquer?
Oh, yes.
And then you got, I'm assuming Alexander the Great did the same thing. I'm assuming that Hitler did the same thing. When the Mongols took over Eastern Europe and attempted to take over all Christendom, they did the same thing in Eastern Europe, because in the Eastern Europe, all of Eastern Europe was all one religion, Orthodox, and they wouldn't let them pass through from their native country to others, except, if it was approved. Subsequently, the people of each individual Orthodox country attached their ethnicity to the religion, which is kind of a misnomer, but it's been practiced. It's just more out there now that this statement has been refound by you and now presented to our community. Can you guys still hear me?
You were cutting in and out then a bit, Tiger.
Okay. How about now? Is that any better?
That's nice and clear.
Okay. I was saying, this is all old. It's all more new now that you found this by, I think it was Montague. But this has been practiced through a lot of nations throughout history. It's just, I think they've refined it even more so that it's now global.
Yes.
So, I mean, this is scary. I mean, I typed it into the chat a little bit ago. If you said this to someone, they would say that this was conspiracy theory, but it's not. It's not theory.
No.
When you have proof.
Yeah. And what is an imperialism to rule the world? That's world domination, and it's control.
And as you and I talked about before now, for those of you who don't share my opinion, who don't share my religious opinion, you're entitled. We are in a country that allows freedom of speech, freedom of religion. Just keep it clean. But according to the book of Revelations, and I'm certainly not a religious scholar, but according to the book of Revelations, all the countries are going to be ruled by the bankers. Is this not fulfillment of prophecy?
Yeah, hidden in plain sight. Yeah, and I mean this
place to hide stuff.
Yeah, this is a quotation from the speech, but it was read into the Australian Parliament's Hansard, which is a physical copy of everything, every speech that is given. Two Australian MPs thought it was so important that they read it out. It's in 1926 and then once in 1930. And it was also published in the Idaho Leader newspaper on the 26th of August, 1924. So some people were awake at the time and realized, and this was pretty close, wasn't it, to the rise of the Federal Reserve. This was only 10 years, 11 years after that secret formation, self-formation.
This is just a progression. If I remember my history lines correctly, and I think I do, it was 1907 when in my opinion, the government of the time let the currency get so ridiculous because banks were allowed to print their own money, states were allowed to print their own money. It got really confusing, got really out of hand. They let it get out of hand, so the people were screaming for some sort of control. And then rushes in the government saying, we'll take over. We are the federal government. We will be the only source of printed money, blah, blah, blah. 3 years later, the big wigs, the big financial people, make that real quiet trip to Jekyll Island. 3 years later, the birth of the Federal Reserve, which is neither federal nor reserve. It's a bunch of bankers. Now, 1924, let's see here. That is 11 years later. Seems to me like a serious progression.
Well, absolutely. And I mean, one question you could ask, who are these leading financiers? And what is this imperialism to govern the world? It's a new empire, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
It's and if you look at our recent history, what is happening? Wealth is being centralized, control is being centralized, production is being centralized, corporations are getting bigger and bigger. You look at farming, I mean, the US used to give away free seed to everybody. Now farmers have to buy it. And they're not allowed to produce their own seed, or they'll get sued by one of the big 4 seed companies.
Are you joking me?
No. If a farmer buys seed and grows a crop, they cannot take seed from that crop and grow more crops. They'll get sued.
Well, how in the world would they know anyway?
Well, I guess they have spies on the ground. Farmers have been prosecuted for doing that. But it's all about control, isn't it? When you've just got a few corporations that control each industry, each sector, and then they in turn are probably controlled by these leading financiers. And what is their main instrument? It's debt, isn't it? It's the currency. Currency is their main instrument of increasing this power. I doubt if in my lifetime we will ever get a presidential candidate who will state day one, I will abolish the Federal Reserve and we will return to a balanced budget within 2 years. And if they do say that, they're lying. They have no intention to do it.
Well, even if they did have good intention to do it, the system would attack them.
Or they will bottle out. There will be a decision. They'll be up against such a powerful wall of opposition that they'll decide not to do it. So we are going to see central CBDC, 100%.
Yeah,
that's coming. It's coming soon. It's organized at the Bank of International Settlements that at least 50 countries, CBDCs will be instantaneously interchangeable. So in effect, a partial world currency. This is coming. This is one of the reasons, one of the key reasons I think it's important to have as much wealth as one can outside of the traditional financial system.
Yeah, and that's why I and almost all of us in our stacking community believe that the only way to defend against it is gold and silver.
Yeah.
And if you don't hold it, you don't own it.
Can you pull Niels Hahn's comment up there? He disagrees that he thinks we will not have a CBDC.
Let me see if I can pull that up. Hold on.
Here we go. I'm convinced it will happen, Neil. I think it's inevitable. And when we face an international world financial crisis, I mean, you look how close we came to it with just CrowdStrike systems. I think 10% of computing systems froze. It's going to be so easy to provoke or just wait for a crisis to happen, and then the whole banking system will stop working, and they will use that as the excuse to, do you know what, we have this sort of ready, we think it might work, it's our only shot to get everything working again. You know, usually the crisis will happen on a Friday, so it gives them a Saturday and a Sunday, and then maybe they'll get everything switched over to the new CBDC by about Wednesday or Thursday before we go Mad Max. And in a way, it probably will be the only way to get a functioning economy going again, to get people paid, and so people can pay their bills, and drivers or delivery drivers will deliver, people will turn up for work. I am 100% convinced we are going to go fully. We are so close to fully digital anyway. The only real difference is it's instantaneously traceable, and each penny, each cent can be coded, how you can spend it, what interest it gets, what negative interest it gets. It will unleash another whole level of control, but we are so close to a fully digital system anyway. Very, very few people, very few transactions are done in anything but digital dollars.
They're going to create a problem. I've already done a playlist for both prepping and solar. They're basically the same playlist for right now. You know, the thing is that, you know, if you don't hold your own, and whether it's gold or silver or lead or water or food, you're going to be subject to whatever the government throws your way. So, you know, the thing is that none of us can outlast the backing of a corrupt government. None of us. But, you know, the thing is that we can outlast them if we join together in a community, because there's more of us than there is of them. The thing is that that's one of the reasons I also think they want to get rid of our lead.
Yeah.
Okay, if you look at ancient Okinawa, the king of Okinawa was very offended that the citizens had bladed weapons. He outlawed them, and shortly after they were confiscated, shortly after that was successfully confiscated, Japan invaded Okinawa and took it because the citizens didn't have weapons to protect themselves and subsequently their island country. History will repeat itself. Now, the weapons of choice now is not bladed weapons; it's more things that go boom. But you know, the thing is that the concept's still the same, and you know, I can't say this enough. We have to join together as a community. You know, do what you can for yourself, for your family, but by all means, you know, get close to your closest friends, your neighbors, your family, those of us who are like-minded. Okay, here's something from Neil Hans. As people move towards more electric and digital forms of payment, it might seem like paper money is on the way towards obsolescence, The experts say that cash will always be around. That's what they're saying right now.
It's such it's almost an irrelevant. As a percentage of transactions, it's almost gone. I mean, they stopped printing $100 bills in 2017.
They did?
Yeah. I mean, if anybody can find a newer one, let me know. But I have not found a newer $100 bill, and we see quite a few of them. I have not seen one past 2017. And if you think during the pandemic, the coin shortage, what was that about? It was just making it harder to use cash.
Exactly.
You know, and I mean, for large value transactions, even a $100 bill is getting a bit cumbersome. You think there used to be, what was it, $10,000? I think, and I think in Britain there was a $1 million, £1 million note. I think there's still, you know, but even if you look at all the legislation, how it's making it harder and harder to use cash. You know, banks have to declare they have to declare a random amount of cash transactions, let alone any over $10,000. So I am convinced physical cash is going away. I don't think it can be stopped, and I think in the moment of the crisis, it will actually appear to be the best thing to do to stop a collapse in society, to stop it hitting the fan. I don't think, personally, I don't think in America we're going to get to that point. I don't think that will favor these financial elites who need a functioning economy, a functioning country to provide their goods and services. So I think America will probably be the last country to have a breakdown in society. So I think our issue is how do we get and keep some financial independence?
I totally agree with that. Sean Precious, Bullion, welcome. I feel like a criminal every time I use a $100 bill and the cashier studies it harder than young men looking at boobs. I can understand that. And I think part of that's also because of the amount of counterfeiting that's gone on.
Amy Harrell has a good comment there, Tiger. Can you put Amy's comment up? So I think I've worked out how America is going to escape all of the dollars that are outside of the US, because as most of us have probably worked out, we've got away with debasing the dollar to a certain extent because we're debasing all the dollars that are outside of the US. So we've spread the effect of that debasement, that inflation. So we've had less penalty for creating all this quantitative easing. So you've got trillions of dollars. I think there's more dollars that are created outside of the US than are in the US. So say the way I see it comes to pass and we've gone full CBDC. So now we have a digital dollar. So initially we'll have two forms of dollar in the US. We'll have the digital dollar and we'll have the old non-digital dollar, whether that's physical currency or dollars in an account that haven't been transferred to the new digital system. Or that privilege to transfer to the new system can be extended to dollars outside of the US. So we could say to China, do you know what? I think we're just fed up with all your crap. We're not playing. We're not playing nice anymore. Any dollars you've got are now old dollars, and they're staying old dollars. We're not going to convert them to the new digital dollar.
Well, I understand that for the most part. The problem is, you know, what do you think about? I mean, I'm going to go in a slightly different direction here.
Sure.
Most of us are aware of what President Trump said at the Bitcoin convention. And what's your take on that? I have a belief that he was somewhat telling them what they wanted to hear, but I think somewhat in there is a cryptic message.
Well, I mean, we do accept Bitcoin. So am I anti it completely? No. But we instantly turn it into dollars. And it is already, those dollars are already turned into silver. Those will be dollars that we then pass to our wholesaler to replace the product we've sold. So we will help people spend Bitcoin. But ultimately, I think Bitcoin only has value because people says it has. It's fiat. It might or might not be governments saying it has value. It might or might not be government sourced, government created or controlled. It's definitely becoming bankster controlled, isn't it, with Bitcoin ETFs? They've got their fingers in it now. So ultimately, it will revert to its fundamental value, which is zero. When? I don't know. Does it go to 80,000? Or does it go from where it is now back down to 16,000? I don't think anybody knows. So I'm not going to get caught holding Bitcoin. I think Rafi Farber gave a very good description. He describes it. He says it's a key to a safe.
Understood.
But there's nothing in the safe.
Let me ask you this, Ian. As you well know, and a lot of you who are members and subscribers to the channel know, I've started pouring silver, and this is some of my silver products. I laid them out here. So right now, the only thing that I'm taking as payment is PayPal. And depending on who you listen to, there's a 3 or 4% that PayPal takes. And, you know, a lot of people will go ahead and say, well, you know, pay that additional percent so that I don't lose in the profit margin. Yeah. Similarly, if I go to my pawn shop and buy something there, they typically want cash, and if not, they charge me a percentage, to which I usually have gone across the street to the gas station. Bear with me, I'm getting to a point here. I went to the gas station. It used to be I could pull up $400 for $2. Then it was for $3. Then it was for $4. Now I can only pull out $200 for $3.50.
Wow.
So it's now $7 to pull out $400.
Yep.
Okay. I went back to the pawn shop and says that's almost to the level that I would charge you for just using a card. Yeah. Okay. So she subsequently said, if you don't have the cash on you, I'll do the card. Save you the walk across the street with the possibility of getting hit by a car because it's a four-lane road. But also, you know, she's saying, you know, that she couldn't believe that was what's going on. Now, now that I presented that, if I'm doing business and I take a card, I'm going to have to charge someone for buying my poured products because I want to get charged as a business. So how does it work? Say if someone says, I want to buy one of your products, Tiger, and let's say I did take Bitcoin, which I don't know how to take Bitcoin. That's another computer thing I've got to fight against. But how would that work? If being a businessman who deals in Bitcoin, okay, as a new businessman who might deal in Bitcoin, what would your advice be to someone who's new?
My advice, and this is an unpaid promotion, I really like the Cash App. It's a free way to pay in dollars. It's a great way you can have Bitcoin on it. So you've got to get your Bitcoin code, and then you can cash out pretty well instantly. So you're not exposed to too much of a fluctuation in the Bitcoin value. And they take a very, very low fee for cashing out on the Bitcoin. And then if you get paid on the Cash App and you want to transfer it to another bank account, that's fee-free if you wait 2 days.
How in the world do they stay in business if everything?
I don't know. I mean, they're a bank as well. They do other banking services, but there's no fees. Okay. And Cash App's really easy to use. It's really simple to use.
My experience with Cash App and Venmo is they just, I don't know, they don't work with me. I don't know. Maybe it's me. Maybe it's because I'm a technological moron sometimes.
If I can do it, you can do it, Tiger.
No, I'll have to try that along my many other things I'm fighting in the computer world. But I just wanted to ask you about the whole Bitcoin. So if it was Bitcoin, customer X says, I want to buy your Trump MAGA round, and they want to pay in Bitcoin. Are you're saying as soon as you get it, you convert it into cash?
Convert it into dollars. Yeah.
Put it into your bank account somehow.
And I don't charge a fixed fee or anything. I just say, look, I will, as soon as I receive it, I will turn it into dollars. That's the amount you have paid. So you'll either have to pay some more or there'll be a credit due. I mean, obviously on the larger transactions, it's not so much of an issue. But it worked pretty well so far.
Okay. Do you lose money or gain money because Bitcoin's kind of volatile?
So I don't get into the speculation. I just tell people that the amount of dollars you have paid me via Bitcoin is the amount of dollars when I press the sell button.
Okay. I was just asking because in that period of time, are they still usually the same dollars? Are they more? Are they less?
It can. I mean, my first dabble, somebody wanted to buy 1,000-ounce bar in Bitcoin, and I said, "We'll do a little transaction first. I will cash it out, and I'll see what the volatility was." So they sent me $3 worth of Bitcoin, and then when I sold it, it dropped 3%, and I said, "There's no way you're sending me." At my risk, what you think is enough dollars in Bitcoin to pay for the silver, but I'll do it at your risk.
Okay.
Either way, so if I get more dollars, the client gets a rebate, or if I get less dollars, they have to top up to cover the agreed invoice amount.
That sounds fair.
Yeah. And I have had people approach me saying, "Oh, I can help you do it. You can hold your Bitcoin, wait for it to go up and sell it when it goes up." And it's like, but what if it's on that point? You know, I mean, it did, didn't it? It went from 69,000 to 16,000.
Yeah.
What if you accepted payment at 69 and then you've got to wait 2 years before it gets back to 69? Doesn't work for me. But yes, Invisible River Ranch, it does transfer really fast. Yeah. I think the last payment I took, the client paid another 8 cents for the highest speed transaction on a several $1,000 equivalent transaction. I think he only had to pay 8 cents more to get the fastest transaction. So you can jump the queue, you can go up the queue because there seems to be always a line of transactions waiting to go through the system to get processed.
So understood. Hello, Invisible River Ranch. Hello, Kitten.
Yeah, my kitten says there, I don't lose money from that because I'll only do it on the condition that the amount of dollars I've received is when I've sold the Bitcoin that you sent me. But I have noticed that some other firms are charging a fixed fee now for accepting Bitcoin, probably because they've got caught too many times losing.
Do you do that with a lot of people? If it drops by the time it goes in the bank, you got to top off, or if I get more by the time it goes in the bank, I'll refund you?
That's how I've done it. It seems to work. It seems to work well. It's transparent.
I understand. Now that I mentioned the whole thing about Trump and what he said at the Bitcoin convention and what my thought process is, what's your thought process on that?
On that, I really think government should stay out of it. If it's everything that it's supposed to be, the last thing we want is politicians involved in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm saying that on behalf of friends. I am not I am not involved in Bitcoin. I don't hold Bitcoin. I don't speculate in it. But I've got friends that do, and I think the last thing they want is government or banks to get involved in it, because it then becomes part of the system, and the system is controlled by these leading financiers we just spoke about.
Yeah.
And the government is controlled by them as well. And this might upset some people watching here, but there is no president coming to save us. It doesn't matter who you elect. All they do is extract more and more wealth out of the majority of Americans.
Well, my take on that was he was trying to warn everyone to look out. The government's going to try to take your Bitcoin, because once they confiscate it, they keep it.
Yeah, I mean everything's in place for that. I mean, there's terrorist transactions have been done in Bitcoin. That Bitcoin has then been divided up into fractional Bitcoin, and that fractions of that Bitcoin can be in who knows whose wallet. And if there's a fraction of a Bitcoin that has been used in a crime in a wallet, that wallet then belongs to law enforcement. So yes, technically they could seize a huge amount. Yeah.
And from what I understand, they now have the technology to seize it. And so therefore, it's not completely outside the system anymore, like people still think.
Wow. I guess, yeah. I mean, I don't know what the technicalities of, was it JP Morgan did the Bitcoin ETF? I'm not sure. It was one of the big banks, wasn't it?
You would know that better than I would.
Sean's Precious Bullions made a good comment. Anything digital can be hacked. And that is my thought, understanding. I've got a few friends who have done programming for 40, 50 years and all of them I've spoken to in depth about when they develop systems, they always create a backdoor that only the developer knows about in case something goes wrong and the front door gets locked and they've lost the key. They always make a backdoor. So,
isn't that the case? Kind of similar to Liberty safes.
Yeah. Yeah.
They ship credit cards faster than, faster than electronic checks. Take a long time.
I think Invisible River is saying about the time the transaction takes. Yeah, I mean, e-checks normally take a business day. They're not instantaneous.
Good night, Broke Stacker. Thank you for coming.
And yes, Sean, it's a lot harder to hack your physical gold and silver. And in fact, their actions are only creating more tailwinds behind the price increase. They continually, all of their actions on many levels, the currency debasement, eventually the precious metals will give accounting for that. The price suppression and the volatility on silver has caused lack of exploration and new mines coming online and no real incentive to recycle. So yeah, it is pretty unhackable and one of the last bastions, I think, of constitutional freedom.
So let me throw another question at you, because we all live here in America, and in my opinion, there's a tendency for Americans to not see outside of America, probably because we have an ocean on both sides and somewhat protected, not like we used to be thanks to technology and all that, but we still have that false sense of security, and we don't seem to think about what's happening outside of our government as much. But being that you're from England, I'm sure you still have friends and family over there. Is this type of stuff going on over there as well?
I think the majority of the population is just as unaware. It's, I think that's a Western global situation.
Yep, I think you're probably right.
And it's a mixture of things, isn't it? It's not just lack of education. It's the education that is given. A lot of it is partial information or misinformation. And definitely no intention of helping create critical thinking, creativity. It's my late friend Jim Forsyth told me that the American education system was based on some communist system that was designed to create workers, not thinkers. And it's like that wow. I realized that's it, isn't it? You have all of these different lessons, different teachers, so there's no continuity, there's no creativity. It's just a dumbing down of the human existence, I think, a lot of the formal education.
I think you're right. And I've noticed ever since I was a teenager how people didn't pay attention to the things I paid attention to. I'm not saying I'm smarter than everyone, but I am a person who's always seen in terms of patterns. And then when I would say something, it's always some sort of smart alecky, stupid comment followed by a Beavis and Butthead laugh. It's like, okay, no use talking to you anymore.
Yeah. I guess America is fairly unusual. From what I understand, there's a fair degree of home education. Mm-hmm. So I guess at least there may be a part of the population that is not as indoctrinated.
Yeah. And by the time they do get indoctrinated, then it's going to be a bigger crisis for them than it will be for us. Then there's going to be violence in the streets, and therefore a crisis for everyone, because people are going to be trying to steal from those who've basically been preppers and stackers. So it's always the same. The people who pay the least amount of attention want a handout instead of wake up, work hard, save as much as you can, prepare for the future, that type of thing. I mean, go back all the way to, Egypt, and when Joseph was taken to Pharaoh to interpret his dreams of 7 years worth of abundance, followed by 7 years worth of famine, and that Joseph's interpretation of his dreams was their form of the internet at that time, so that because of which they prepared and they got through the famine without too much of a problem, compared with Joseph's brothers, who sold him years before and didn't even recognize him, but sold him years before, and they probably squandered all their food supplies, and then they were starving and went to Egypt asking for a handout. It's just history repeating itself.
I mean, I don't think they went asking for a handout. I think it was a matter, if we don't get food, we're going to die.
Yeah, exactly. Same. But,
okay. But yeah, interestingly, Egypt then became, I think, the wealthiest nation on earth, because any surrounding nations who went to get the grain that they had surplus of had to pay for it.
Isn't that always the case?
Yeah.
People don't want to work for free.
So, it was interesting, isn't it? We've got sort of circling back around, we did touch on big agricultural concentration, in just a few companies controlling the bulk of the fertilizer, controlling the bulk of the seeds, controlling the large, huge tracts of land. I mean, Bill Gates, the largest owner, I think, isn't he, of US farmland now?
That might be so. I don't know that one.
It's pretty close, if not the largest. Well, I've often thought, well, if he thought Microsoft was so amazing, why wouldn't he have just kept all of his billions in Microsoft?
That makes sense. I mean,
he knows tangible asset way better than a stock.
Exactly. And stocks go up and down.
Yeah, and eventually they go to zero.
Food is always important. You know, you're going to always need food. It's one of the reasons why, even though I worry about SHGF, you know, if and when it hits, more like when it hits, I'm a little less worried because I can use my skills as a physician to trade for what I need.
I think somehow the country's going to be kept functioning. I don't think it's time. I think we had various forms, didn't we, of temporary societal breakdown in Portland. I mean, heck, even in Denver, there were sort of riots sweeping through the Capitol. I think those were experiments, or they were definitely monitored to see, you know, how the consequences. I think somehow the system will be kept together. I don't think they finished extracting wealth out of us yet.
No, they haven't. But if
No.
you look, if I remember my history correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, in the 1910s and then later during the Great Depression, people started making their backyards their garden, and a lot of communities started what they called a community garden. And between backyard gardens and community garden was producing 40% of the produce that was needed to feed America at those time frames. And each time, the government's like, you know, you don't need to do this anymore. Help support the government. Go to your grocery store. Get back in the system. Let's put that collar around your neck and the leash and the shock collar too, so if you step out of line. So, I mean, I don't know if you agree with me, but that's been my take of watching things happen and seeing these patterns.
Yeah. I mean, Neil's just mentioned there the victory gardens. Yeah, I mean, Britain had a choice: starve or grow more food. So they chose to grow more food. And interestingly, obviously during the war, there was rationing in Britain, and it went on for a long time after the war. So there was restrictions on the amount of sugar. There were restrictions on the amount of meat you could have. And that generation, which is my dad, had the best health in all of recorded history of England and Britain. The ones that had a diet that was restricted in meat and in sugar. The bread was half strong flour and half white flour, so it was a mix of wholemeal, whole grain flour, and the population has never been as healthy since. So even with all of the stress of wartime, you know, with the hundreds of thousands of young men and brothers and fathers going off to war and a lot of them dying or coming back injured, or even with all of that stress, the population was healthier on a simple diet. Now, particularly in America, that I think the amount of food, the processed food, it still disturbs me if I go in an American store and you see rows and rows of boxes and bottles of chemicals, and they call it food.
Well, I remember when I was a kid, it was always pushed, you know, Kellogg's and everything else, you know. In fact, you got to keep in mind, I'm a huge superhero fan, and I looked into, and I'm getting somewhere with this, I looked into, you know, information about who was the first Superman and all that, and started buying CDs, putting them into the TV to watch the old stuff. And when I bought from George Reeves' The Adventures of Superman, they included all sorts of interesting little commercials in there, and they were, oh my goodness. Do you know who? Okay, 1950 was the very first season for Superman with George Reeves.
Really?
Yes, 1950. Okay, it started off with a movie, Superman versus the Mole Man. which they later converted to a 2-part episode later on season 1. Then they skipped a year. Then they started in 1952 because they were looking for a sponsor, and the sponsor that sponsored them was Kellogg's. So,
yeah. I mean, can I interrupt there?
Oh yeah, but
what I understand of the Kellogg dynasty, they worked out they could take a low-grade animal feed, they could roll it, cook it, whatever they do to make cornflakes, add sugar and salt, and sell it for 10 times the price.
I believe that.
That's what I've heard about how Kellogg's started.
I believe that. I don't know that to be for sure, but I believe that.
Well, it makes sense, doesn't it? Because the amount of salt and sugar and monosodium glutamate and other chemicals that are added to make the product addictive.
Well, I believe that.
Yeah.
And if you watch, I have all the seasons with George Reeves in CD form, and at the end of the CDs, they'll show you some of the commercials and all that, and they're all big. The actors did their own commercials.
Yeah.
Okay. There wasn't any professionalism to professional commercials now. The actors did their own. So you have the actors for Superman all eating together, having a good old time over breakfast with Kellogg's. So, but they pushed that, and that's what was sold. So I'm looking for something that. Okay, there's what I wanted to find for Amy. There you go. So I'm not surprised.
No,
they weren't regulated like they are now.
Yeah, I mean, the biologically, our gut is part of our brain. Like most scientists now understand that they're just so interconnected. It's one organ, and the microorganisms in our gut have so much control. They basically tell our brain what to eat. That's why it's easier to get a craving to eat lots of sugar or lots of carbohydrates, because it's literally that feeds the bad bugs in our gut. They tell our brain to tell us, this is what you want to eat. I
wouldn't doubt that.
No, that's fact. That is fact. And it takes a while to break it. I mean, I love good quality milk chocolate. I could eat pounds and pounds and pounds and pounds of it.
I understand.
But the only antidote is if I can find a good apples, I'll eat apples till I'm enjoying them so much I don't want to eat chocolate. I don't want the taste of the chocolate or the sugar or the fat.
In my case, I love the sugar. I love the chocolate.
Yeah.
But for me, it's probably more an issue of chocolate. I'm a chocoholic.
Well, again, I mean, the cocoa is a stimulant, isn't it? Is it creates morphine or whatever, the feel-good chemicals in your brain?
Yeah, it releases a good amount of dopamine.
Yeah.
And probably a good amount of endorphins as well.
Probably.
I remember years ago, I was a medical director for 4 or 5 different addiction centers. And I was getting people off of opiates. It was a hard fight, but I had more success than my competitors. And I went to a medical conference in Dallas, Texas. Now, at the time, I still am a pilot, but I don't fly anymore. I haven't re-upped my medical. They won't take your license from you unless you do something stupid. So once you're licensed, you're always licensed, but you have to have a medical. Well, I haven't done a medical in a long time because my wife wanted me to quit flying because it's expensive, and I did. But at the time, I flew myself to Dallas, Texas. Okay, now I got sick in Dallas. Don't know what's wrong with Dallas, but every time I go to Dallas, I get sick. I had a leg infection. I got some sort of respiratory infection. I was just sick. And to the point where my flight instructor took a commercial flight to come get me, and we flew my airplane back home. But basically, while I was there, I didn't eat for a few days because I was too sick. And the hotel sent me up some care packages. All of them had water in it and a bunch of chocolates in each little bag. Now, these chocolates were no different than any other chocolate you buy in a store. It wasn't gourmet chocolate. It wasn't from a special place. Just your typical everyday store-bought chocolate. And I hadn't had chocolate in 4 months. I was trying to get myself off of it. I ate that chocolate, and I swear to you, it tasted like the best gourmet chocolate ever on the planet. It was amazing. So when I come back, I tell this story in group session to my patients that were addicts. Hey, Nick, welcome. So I'm telling this story to my patients, and they said, Doc, it's the same way. They told me 2 different stories. It's the same thing that happens to us when we go back to drugs. It's almost like the first high we ever get.
Yeah, you get that extra kick. Yeah.
The second thing that it told me was those of them that had been incarcerated, and when they couldn't get drugs inside the prison, they would gorge on chocolate.
Right.
Chocolate does release dopamine, not to the level that drugs do, but it does release dopamine as the feel-good drug.
Problem is, if they're eating Hershey, you're going to get blocked up with all the wax they put in it, aren't you?
Oh yeah, they use paraffin.
Yeah, paraffin wax. Yeah.
Yeah, it keeps it from melting.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if that causes irritable bowel syndrome to get worse.
I would have thought so. Any petrochemicals are not good to ingest. Yeah.
Oh, ain't that the truth?
Yeah.
There are times when I've had gorging episodes of chocolate that sometime later I have an IBS attack. So I often wonder about the paraffin.
Probably.
So tell us what's going on with the osmium. We haven't even touched osmium.
Yeah, no, it's been it's exciting. So we are helping form a Colorado State Institute and a New Mexico State Institute. So the relevant guys that are doing that, they're going to get trained up, and they've got some exams to take. So, and they're all very creative people. So hopefully we'll be able to share fairly soon who they are. So that's exciting. We're steadily selling jewelry. Sold 5 pairs of earrings with the 4mm squares in them.
Is that what's coming to wifey?
Yeah, shall I get one? I've got one. Just if you hang on a sec, I'll go grab one. That's
awesome.
Oh, hang on.
Yeah, I have that spatial orientation problem with computers.
There we go.
Yeah, she's gonna love that. Now you'll know she's in the chat because she'll comment when she sees something pretty like that.
So they're selling very well, which is encouraging because every piece we sell is a story. And
here we go! She's there! There goes my alarm system.
And then we have also just sold the first silver and osmium domino set. So that's pretty awesome. 28 2-inch by 1-inch silver dominoes with 168 3mm osmium diamonds in. So that's going to be a fair bit of work for me assembling them. I do the assembling.
Yeah, after I get her anniversary presents, which is the earring and the necklace.
Oh, do you want to put Joseph Lopez comment up there?
Okay, let me find it.
That's absolutely no problem, Joseph, because there's not only is there not enough for everyone, there's only enough for hardly anyone. So it's really not a problem. There's so little of it.
Yeah.
There's going to be plenty of willing buyers, and it will all be gone, the whole production of 350 kilos. So
Yeah, I'm trying to get some extra work. I want to get a little stash of osmium. But I figured out while I'm trying to stack silver and gold, I'm going to get some jewelry stuff for the missus.
yeah, I mean,
Because I had another project I wanted to get done before osmium, and now that I'm going to restack. Let's see here. I'm going to restack my cash. Then I'm going to get myself a little stash of osmium from you. So that's coming.
oh, Ellie says how much for the earrings? So these are in a sparkle 4. Oh, here we go. So you can see it's got quite a strong crystal structure, the sparkle 4. So these are in 14 carat mounts with a heavy back. These are ballpark around $600. It does vary a lot on the osmium pieces because they vary in weight, and that affects the price. But so ballpark, so in the sort of $560 to $620 range.
Yeah, I understand that, and with who was it said they weren't so much into the osmium? I forgot who that was.
Joseph Lopez.
Okay, and you don't really have to be, because that's kind of an atypical stack. I would say focus on your gold and silver.
Interesting. I think. Sorry to interrupt, Tiger. I'm just trying to keep the thought before I lose it. I think we're close to it being tokenized. There are several people working on it. The Osmium Institute are 100% with it as long as it's done one for one and independently verified that it is, so I think that will be very interesting, because to have it tokenized so people can buy a small dollar amounts, and then it can be redeemed in the 2mm squares and bigger for physical.
So that's going to be like having gold and silver certificates back in the ancient days.
Yeah, but completely independent, and unlike gold and silver, no commodity. I mean, raw osmium is not traded on a commodity market, nor is the crystalline osmium. So about as independent as you can get for a tangible asset. I mean, yes, a big criticism, and I understand the criticism, is that it's a monopoly. It's 2 private monopolies. Only one Swiss scientist worked out how to crystallize it. It took him 40 years. And only one institute, the Osmium Institute of Germany, are the only purchasers from that Swiss scientist. So you have got 2 private monopolies. So that is too much of a jump for some people to get over. But I know the people. I know them very well. They are very sound. They're very honest. And they're very ethical. I am 100% satisfied there is never going to be a competitor.
Well, for me, it's going to be. I don't want paper osmium, just like I don't want paper silver and gold. I'm going to get the wife her anniversary presents first, and then I'm going to drop a check on you to have a little stash, because
it's definitely a diversification in the precious metal world to consider.
Mm-hmm.
I think everybody fundamentally should have a good core base in silver. I think probably 60-70% at least in dollar denominated terms at current prices should be in silver if you really want to ride the wave, because silver always tags along for years behind gold, and then it slingshots and goes way further, way faster in the last part of the move where the biggest gain happens. So I think, as long as space allows, silver should be one's largest portion. And then I think gold, I think that's optional, in my opinion. We personally keep sometimes zero gold because I think silver is fractional gold. Where gold goes, silver goes and does better. It will never detach. They will always be precious metals. They will always be money. And silver is getting consumed on an industrial basis. It's just increasing. So silver is getting destroyed, whereas the amount of gold is growing. So I think that ratio will close. So I think if you're modestly patient, you buy silver now, you'll get 3 gold later.
I think that is entirely right. I mean, I've experienced it on a very small scale. If you remember, I bought my only 100-ounce bar I ever bought was a British Britannia bar because it was so
I remember that one.
I was so darn pretty. I bought it for $2,450. And then I realized I'm probably not going to buy any more 100 ounces. And I didn't want to have to deal with it. And I walked into the pawn shop and I saw a gold buffalo for $2,450. So I decided I was going to do a trade, but I didn't realize it until I got back. The spot price had gone up to $32.50.
Yeah, you traded at a good time. Yeah,
I did, and I had $700 ish left over, for which I bought a bunch of constitutional dimes. So I don't normally pay attention to it that much. To me, it's all about the weight rather than about the dollar.
yeah,
Because if I wait and wait and wait, then it's going to be like the person in the desert who is thirsty and becoming dehydrated and dies and has a canteen full of water because they were waiting too long. For me, I do what I like to call accidental dollar cost averaging.
yeah.
Whenever I'm free from work, hi, check stacker, welcome. It's whenever I'm free from work is when I buy. And I'm not gonna give myself a migraine worried about this and worry about that, because SHTF is coming, and when it gets here, it really doesn't matter what I bought it for. It's going to be a matter of, do you have something, or are you not having anything? But I diverge. I wanted you to go more on about osmium. I'll shut my darn mouth.
Yeah, I think we are entering a crisis, but I don't think it'll be a societal breakdown. I think it will just be a further transfer of wealth. I think it will be more people losing their homes, more people having to rent from bigger and bigger corporations. It'll be more people living paycheck to paycheck, and it'll be less people experiencing the American dream. I mean, the system has to keep the American dream. Some people have to succeed and break out of what they were born into or what their life had been to a certain point. There has to be hope. That is, if you snuff out all hope, you end up with that despair that is typical of a failing communist country.
Oh, yeah.
You get that gray, you get a denial of God, and people just lose the will to do, and eventually it collapses in on itself. So I don't think we're going to get a hit the fan situation that most people are expecting. It will just be a continuation of the decades-long destruction of the middle class and extraction of wealth.
Oh, I agree with you. In fact, I'm glad you mentioned that. That brings me back to something I was going to talk about before. As you all well know, Mrs. Tiger is from Ukraine. And when she was a little girl, the Soviet system had collapsed. That was brought to a collapse by the well-played cards of then President Ronald Reagan. he caused the Soviet collapse through finance. They completely were freaked out whenever Reagan was building more nuclear weapons, so they built more. So Reagan built more, and they built more. It was designed to collapse the system, and they didn't.
And the space race.
Yeah.
And the space race took a huge amount of the USSR's resources, and then you add the misallocation of resources. When you have that command economy, this factory is going to make 1 million toasters, but the market only needs 600,000. Well, you've wasted all that labor and materials making 400,000 toasters that nobody is going to buy.
Yeah.
So the more you head towards a command economy, the worse the economy becomes.
Oh yeah, no, that's true. But the point I'm also trying to make is, one day, and I believe if I remember the story correctly, and wifey, if you're still there, please tell me if I tell the story correctly. With my luck, she'd probably fell asleep. But if you're there, please correct me if I'm wrong. If I remember the story correctly, her parents went to bed one night. I think it might have been a Friday. I'm not sure. Thank you, Lisa. They went to bed one night. The very next morning that the banks opened up, everyone had a zero balance in their bank accounts.
Really?
Yeah. It was an electronic transfer of funds out of everyone's checking account and into the then dying Soviets.
Wow.
Everyone was poor, and hey, great Scott, welcome. So the story as I remember, her mom, who was a dentist, her dad, who was a electrical engineer, moved in with the grandmother in a tiny little apartment that had a living room, a bedroom, and a kitchen. No, and one spare room, which was about 3 times the size of a closet. And you had mom, dad, my wife, her brother, and grandma. The 5 people in this little tiny little place, all to try to conserve whatever funds that they had to make it through about. Who am I talking about? Wifey, what happened to her when she was a little girl and the Soviet system collapsed. So, and if you don't think that it's happened in so many other governments, it will happen again. 4,800 currencies collapsed in a 6,000 year, and they all followed the same patterns. So it's going to happen. You better have this stuff waiting for you.
Not only is it going to happen, it's happening. If you just look at, if you use gold as the flat line, 1970, $35 a troy ounce. Now we're 2,500 nearly. In British pounds, 1970, 14 pounds 50 pence. Now nearly 2,000 pounds. So that is in part of my lifetime. I can clearly remember being 6, 7 years old when gold was 15, 14 pounds an ounce. And so if you take gold as a flat line throughout history as money, which, the fiat currency has already lost over 99%.
Oh, yeah.
But what is hard to comprehend, the 1% of purchasing power it's got left compared to 1970 is our 100%. And that can lose 99% of its purchasing power in a lot quicker than 50 or 60 years.
No, if you consider,
it can do it in 2 or 3 years.
If you consider the rate at which they're printing, 1 trillion. Typing?
They don't print. Keystrokes.
Well, that's coming. That's coming. It's already here. But
They're not creating more vault cash. They're not creating more physical. That's stuck at around $2 trillion. They just keystroke dollars into existence.
even though we're not quite 100% in the CBDC area,
they are not increasing physical cash. That's not keeping track with the quantitative easing, which is actually continuing, even though they're saying they're tightening. They've actually been easing. No, it's digital, so it's keystrokes. It's typing.
that's even scarier. It's harder to track.
Tap. I mean, how long does it take? 1, then 9 zeros. I mean, a good typist can do that in what? Quarter of a second.
Pretty much.
So quarter of a second, they can create $1 trillion. Or if you put a 9 and 9 zeros, $9 trillion. So it's not even printing anymore. And so we don't get to see, we're not going to see the wheelbarrow fulls of cash. Like you can look at the history books and you can see the films of the Weimar Republic, and we're not going to see stacks and stacks of cash being wheeled around to purchase things, because there isn't enough. I mean, somebody mentioned a while back, Tiger, there's nowhere near enough physical cash to represent the dollars in people's checking accounts, let alone money markets and CDOs and, you know, stocks, bonds, shares, everything that's supposed to be convertible into cash. There's not even enough for basic checking accounts for people to go take out the physical cash.
Well, ain't that the truth?
Yeah.
I mean, how many times have I heard that they would move, you know, something like a bricks car to a bank to, you know, pass their test. I forget what they call it, to pass their test about a road.
Sure. They would just shuffle the notes around. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they'd put it back into the truck and go to the next bank.
The next one that was getting inspected. Yeah. Yeah. And I think a similar thing's happening with physical metals in the LBMA vaults and the COMEX vaults. It seems to be they're very cozy together, and then they can count money, count silver, even though it's 6,000 miles away on a different continent. They can still count it. It can be in two places at once.
That's scary. You know, it's kind of like, you know, when I was a youngster, I didn't know nothing about nothing. I had my first 2 credit cards, and I said, "Can I use this one credit card to pay off the other credit card?" I said, "No, we don't allow that." That's what the government's doing. They're borrowing to pay off. They're just kicking the can down the road.
I remember being told you can't pay credit with credit, and it's like, well, you can now. I mean, they're jumping all over you, aren't they? You know, take out this 0 interest rate card, balance transfer. You know.
Yeah, I mean, and as I grew up, I realized how right they were about how wrong it was. But you know, if you're not allowed to do it in the personal life, you shouldn't be allowed to do it in the government life. So, how many times do I get off that darn topic of osmium? I like that darn stuff. I swear I'm going to accidentally hit one of these cameras because I got a fly that keeps wanting to light on me. So anyway, I'm going to get back on track here. Thanks, Neil. So those of you in the chat who are interested in osmium, now I know Neil's going to jump on this. If you're interested in buying osmium, put a 1 in the chat. If you're not, put a 2. And if you're still thinking about it, put a 3. I want to see what other people's interests are. Me? There's my answer. Neil puts in a 3. He bought more osmium than anybody else I've known.
Yeah, it's. I think it's a very fun metal. It's incredibly beautiful. People buy it because of its appearance, even knowing little or nothing about its scarcity. When you combine its scarcity with its beauty, it's an ideal jewelry metal.
It is.
You can buy small pieces now, and then later, as it becomes in more demand, get it made into a piece of jewelry, and then you can multiply your value again. So I think it's got a versatility that way. I totally agree with what Joseph Lopez says. In a hit the fan situation, probably not ideal for trading with.
Most people won't know what the heck it is.
Yeah.
But for those,
but you wouldn't have that as you wouldn't have that in your store of tangible assets. You wouldn't have it for that purpose.
No, its advantage, in my opinion, is to go to a dealer who deals in osmium, sell it back, and to get the money that you need to take care of the emergency you got to take care of.
Yeah.
See here. We've got someone new here. Brian Lesher, welcome to the chat. When an individual listens to videos like this gold and silver market, record prices and the truth, then you don't know if...
Jeffrey Christian is a very interesting character. So I think he worked for Goldman Sachs, and then he bought their precious metals analyst group from them and formed the CPM group, Christian Precious Metals. He's incredibly well connected, very well respected by a lot of people in the industry, but I think he's telling the partial truth. He has said recently he sees silver reaching $50, but there's no way it could sustain $50. And you think, well, hang on. So if it reaches $50 and then we create another 10 or 20 trillion dollars, we debase the dollar, he's saying it can't maintain $50? Well, that's just ridiculous. Either he does not understand basic mathematics and history, or he's lying. So I think he is part of the system of manipulation and control of the narrative around precious metals. He is incredibly knowledgeable, for sure. But when you talk to explorers and mine owners, and you look at the fundamentals, the burn rate, the deficit, where I think we're around 200 million ounce deficit on silver in the current year. That's 1/4 of the whole mine production. So, 4 more years of a 200 million ounce deficit, we're missing a whole year's worth of production. I don't think there just is above ground stockpiles available anymore. You look at the amount that governments had around the world when silver was physical coin. I mean, in the last year of the quarter, 90% silver quarter dollars, I think in one mint, they minted 700 million quarters. Well, that silver was technically available to the government. They could recall it and melt it and sell it. But that's pretty well gone. I don't think, as far as I'm aware, the US government and the Treasury does not hold any meaningful amount of the 90% silver coins. So that aspect of physical reserves of silver have just gone. And that took centuries to build up that amount of silver. I mean, there was a mountain in Spain, I think it was in Spain, it was mined for 200 years. It created 80% of the silver coinage around the world. That mountain has gone. They've mined it to death. There is no more silver left. And that silver is now being used up. It's so when you get the experts saying things like, yeah, silver's going to reach 50, but it can't maintain it. I can't see he has any historical or mathematical basis. So he tells, sometimes telling a lot of the truth, but missing out certain parts. It's very similar to lying, isn't it? Just a blatant, straightforward lie. I did meet him once at a conference and asked him a question, and he didn't answer the question. He instead insulted one of my sources of the reason I asked the question. So that told me straight away he was on the defensive and going to aggressively insulting somebody. Why would you do that if you're an expert and you know that's sort of last thing you would do if you're an expert in the field? You wouldn't insult somebody's source. You would refute it by factual evidence and logic. So yes, Brian, the devil is in the details. And so we are going to practically run out of silver. I think there will be some reprieve. Some stackers will sell willingly at $50, $60, $70, but that won't be enough to sustain the insatiable industrial demand. I mean, the solar panel use is approaching 30% of mine production now. That's one use. And that can only increase because if you've got the resources and you've got the land and you've got the climate and you've got the populations near enough to use the power, solar power is one of the most cost-effective forms of generating energy.
Yeah.
We have the major oil companies are major players in solar. Now, why are they doing that? It's because they know there's going to be more and more of a shift to solar-powered, solar-produced electricity.
Yeah, it's probably going to be the best thing, to get solar as your source of energy. The other thing is that I'm saving as best I can because I want to get a whole house conversion over to solar power, because I'm concerned that under a SHTF scenario, they turn off the electricity, or we have a attack on one of the major stations.
It doesn't even need to be in a major crisis. I mean, my mother-in-law in Houston, I think she was out electricity for 4 or 5 days.
Well,
so the fragility of the current infrastructure for providing electricity is incredibly volatile. Well, Neil's got a good comment there. The problem with sustained higher prices, it's one, recycling is only really going to kick in at $100, $200 silver. And then only then if people think it's going to maintain that price. But new silver mines, you go right back. Well, how do you get a silver mine? First, you need a geologist to understand the geology of the rocks, to know what to look for, to do exploration. There's hardly people entering that occupation. A lot of the geologists are old and retiring. So there's a deficit of geologists. Two, in North America, there's virtually no. I mean, you've got the Colorado School of Mines, but the number of students they're training is dropping year on year. So we're not training miners who know how to mine. So those 2 key points. But then 3, if you do manage to find a geologist and you do actually have some people who can mine and run the mine, you've got to build out the infrastructure. You've got to get the permits. You've got to get your energy supply. You might even have to build a mill and a refinery if there isn't happen to be a refiner near enough. And that can take 10 to 15 years.
Yeah. And like you said, it doesn't have to be anything. It could be something completely
Yep.
normal like this.
Yeah.
Tropical storm Debbie.
Yeah.
With the anticipation of what it's going to turn into. You know, I have a video that's pending release talking about things about our what's going to happen to us and how it's going to affect everything. You know, that's pending release, and I'm not going to tell you everything because I want people to actually watch it because it's very informative, and I worked very hard at trying to get that information out to everyone. So, but I just wanted to share that with you all because, you know, it's you know how it's going to affect us. You know how it's going to affect all the states that happens to. You know, another example is, and this one that I've never heard of this happening before. Have you ever heard of a derecho?
Of a, sorry, can you repeat that?
Derecho.
Of?
It's called a derecho.
No.
Okay. Derecho is a monster storm. Some people call it a land hurricane. And the only one I've ever heard of was the one that happened in 2012. And it came through our area and knocked out our power for a long time. We had basically 2 weeks, absolutely 2 weeks of no power for multiple states. Not every part of the state was taken up by it, but you know it did affect multiple states. And at that time, I was still an active pilot, and I was in a town. Well, let me bring this up here. Basically, I was in a town in West Virginia having dinner with some people I worked with, and it came through like gangbusters. And that town still maintained its electricity, so I knew that town had electricity. The next day, I took over like a drill sergeant and told my son to go to Home Depot and Lowe's. My wife and I went to the town that I had dinner at so we could load up on gasoline. We couldn't buy an electric generator because, you know, with everybody scarfed them as fast as they could, including little ones that weren't any good, weren't that powerful. They were good, but weren't that powerful. I called up my flight instructor because he with his instruction, I could fly a much bigger airplane than what I was, for lack of a better way of saying it, certificated on. And we took this Saratoga, which has a real big cargo door for a single engine airplane, back up to my home in Pennsylvania that I still owned at the time. Went to the Lowe's store there, bought a monster gasoline generator, brought it back, and we had power. But if I wasn't able to do that, we wouldn't have had anything.
Yeah.
So, you know, the reason I point that out is there's a lot of ways that we can lose our power.
Yeah.
Our ability to take care of ourselves. You know, in fact, I remember when I was at the gas station at that particular time, this one guy comes up to me and says, "Hey, buddy, how about some for the rest of us?" And you know, me being quick on my feet, looked down and, "I'm sorry, but my boss says I have to get as much gas as I can so we can keep the medicines cool for the patients." Oh, okay. Well,
that's a good one. I like that.
The boss was my wife and the patient was me.
I will remember that one. But yeah, I mean, if it's practical to have one's own little solar array that will at least charge up your small electrical devices and run a refrigerator and freezer, it does build some resilience, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah,
it absolutely does.
Especially if you can rig it up yourself, you can do it probably for a quarter of the cost.
So I'm going to put this out to the chat. I was planning to go no more than 2 hours because it's. I'm assuming Ian has his wife that wants him back. The other reason is because I want to start working on making some more poured silver products and getting some videos done. I've learned from my few times going to New Mexico to work that when I'm out there, I don't have the energy between work and exhaustion to make videos. So I have about a dozen videos in its raw form in the back room. And that's all I've been doing with my free time. So I want to get a couple ready to go. So when they're ready, and I can't do that otherwise. But besides, I think 2 hours is a good span of time for us to have a live stream, don't you?
I've got a question for Neil. Neil keeps saying he's selling life jackets for silver. Neil, why don't you do chartered boat trips to help people lose their silver? the Neil Hahn's deep ocean exploration. Bring your silver with you for the trip, and you could give a certificate of loss of silver.
Yeah, ain't that the truth?
Yeah.
But no,
I mean, we joke, but isn't that one of the fundamental reasons why, if you can, you should have precious metals? Because they're private. It's no different to going buying a stack of 2x4s at Home Depot. You can burn them, use them, give them away, do what they're yours to do with what you want. You don't have to tell anybody what you've done with them. It's no different to buying silver, is it? You can give it away, you can lose it, you can do what you want with it. It's nobody's business.
Exactly.
And any other financial instrument, no chance. It's you transfer it, that transfer is recorded.
Oh, ain't that true?
Yeah. So the anonymity, I think that's how you say it. The anonymity is incredibly valuable. We're going to have increasing financial repression. We're going to have an upwards taxation of the bulk of Americans are going to face higher taxation. We're going to see wealth taxes. We're going to see unrealized gains taxation. We're going to see increase in property taxes. It's just what happens as a currency dies, as a government keeps on spending way more.
Well,
it brings in.
Desperate governments do desperate things, to quote Lynette saying.
Yeah. And there isn't anything that's not on the table. It's to sustain the power of the system. I don't think there's anything they won't do until it doesn't work anymore. And so to have that privacy holding precious metals is incredibly powerful, and psychologically as well. When you start saving in precious metals, there's no other comparable way of saving. There's something different. I've got a friend who is in his 60s, and he recently started getting a bit of silver from us, and he said in all his life he's never managed to save, but by buying a bit of silver regularly, he's built up a substantial savings. And
That is not true.
And it's done very well for him already in the few years. And he doesn't consider that it's savings that are to be spent yet. It's
Well, I drank the government's Kool-Aid most of my life.
Yeah.
So Just buy what you want. You deserve it. Never knew in a million years at that time what they were doing was not worrying about whether or not I had what I needed. They wanted to prop up their economy with spending and spending and debt and debt. And now that I've learned, I feel kind of stupid. But the thing is that I was and still am a person who likes pretty things.
Oh, I like that one. Is that one for sale?
They're all for sale.
Can I buy that one, please? I'll buy that one.
Okay. I make these. This is my Tiger Stacker channel round. I have two types.
Who made the die for you?
Oh, it's actually a mold.
Oh, you cast them?
Yes, it's sand casting.
Oh, wow.
So this one here has Tiger Stacker in the rim. The letters Tiger Stacker in the rim. This one has nothing on the rim. And I made one for Dog World and You that has the letters on the rim. And I made ones that have no letters on the rim.
Are those 2-ounce pours? They
are basically 2-ounce pours. This one, I don't know, I think some of the silver popped off and it was 1.95. Actually, it's 1.98, but I roll it down. This one here is 2 ounces. It's number 2. This one here, I've yet to stamp it, but it's going to be number 2.
So how did you make did you sculpt the design and then press it into sand?
It is from a 3D printer.
Oh, so you print it?
3D printer.
Okay.
And then I press it into the sand. This one's a prototype.
Yeah.
And
I think they're awesome. They remind me of the early English cartwheel pennies. They were huge and had a thick rim like that.
Okay.
Yeah. They were called cartwheel pennies because they nearly were the size of cartwheels.
Yeah, with the prototypes, my typical price right now, and I'm kind of toying it whether or not it's still a good price or not, and I'm certainly willing to have you advise me because you're more of a businessman than I am, is $50 an ounce because of the time and energy.
Yeah, I think that's very, very reasonable.
But prototype,
especially since
I was hoping for maybe twice as much because it's the first of the line.
Yeah.
And I'm planning on making more tonight after the live stream, and I do a couple other things. So, if you want anything, just let me know.
I will be ordering some of those, Tiger.
Tell me how many you want, and I'll make them. You want 1? You want 20? You want whatever? I'll make them.
They're awesome.
And this one here, this one's actually from your typical mold. Donald Trump, I call it my MAGA round.
Was that before his ear got shot off or after?
Yeah, that's the weird thing. It was before.
Yeah.
And I screwed up on one of the pours, and I used my screw ups as silver to practice my stamping. How hard, what position. So I practice on messed up silver before I remelt it and try to make something new. My wife showed me the messed up one, and it says, how did you know how to predict what would happen? What are you talking about? Well, this I don't think the mold actually makes a decent ear, but on that one, the ear was even worse. And she's like, how did you know that he was going to get shot? What are you talking about? Since she showed it to me, I sat there and I laughed and laughed and laughed because it just never dawned on me, And besides, it's all messed up because I stamped things all over it trying to practice. But I'm planning on making some more. This is my one and only so far, my MAGA round. So I got that, and someone in the chat wanted me to buy that. I don't think she wants to spend $100 per ounce, which is okay. These are what I call your fake news bars. So when I make them, I stamp on the back fake news.
If you tilt it up to the camera a little bit, the detail, that's it. If you tilt the top toward, that's better. You get a clearer view, less reflection. You're doing great work there, Tiger.
So I will make as many as someone wants. The only limitation is when I'm away from home and I'm working, then that person will have to wait until I come back home and start working on it again. I'm leaving this weekend, at the end of the weekend, to go away for a few weeks. So, if you make an order, I'll make whatever I can in the time frame I can and finish it up. If that works for you.
Cool, yeah.
And for those of you in the chat who are interested, you can always send me an email to thetigerstacker@gmail.com. If you want to pay me for it, the only payment structure I have right now is PayPal through the same email link, thetigerstacker@gmail.com. Please add 4% because of Gmail, and please add $6 for the shipping. And that's it. Yeah, is that the 4.2 ounce? Yeah, right now, Amy, this is my only MAGA round. I don't know if it will hold 5 ounces because at 4.2 it had this, I don't know what you would call it, kind of like a shelf type of added thing on the back. I can try 5 ounces and see how it goes. It's sitting up there waiting for me to give a try at it. At least it says 36 likes. If I get 14 more, I'll give away a 90% 50 cents. But no, if you all are interested, just contact me, leave me an email, send the payment to PayPal. Please understand, I will get to it when I'm back home, and then we'll go from there. I mean, I'll give you an example. See Happy Chappy. He was on a live stream on some of the guys who do races, but at that particular live stream, they were supporting Frostbite's wife, who works with a charitable organization that doctors go into countries that are underserved, and they take care of only the children and the women, because in those countries, women and children are not considered as valuable as men. And so they go in there solely to give surgery and help to the children and the women. And they had a charitable organization at that time. See Happy Chappy won one of my bars. I poured him a silver bar. That it took a few weeks because I was away from home, but it's been put in the mail earlier today before we did the live stream. So if you do make a request, I will get it to you. And those of you who know me, maybe you didn't get your winnings on time, like when I was doing quiz questions, but you all did get what you earned at the time. So I got the credibility to let you know that I will keep my promises. Enough said about that. So, anybody have anything else on a hole in his ear, and he's laughing his butt off? I can't help that. I think that's the mold. Honestly, I think that's the mold. But no. Anybody have any questions here for Ian? I'm not seeing anything. Let me go to another screen just in case this one's slow. Okay. Ian, we're almost at 2 hours on the button.
We are, yeah.
So I've got another pour that I've done. I'm not going to show that one yet. That's going to be for a special time. But if any of you have anything you want to say, please say it now. Ask the questions when you say it now. Ian, when will the next price for osmium?
I have been asking several times a week. I did speak to Scarlett Klaus, the vice director, today. I forgot to ask. I had so many things we were talking about. I will give, as soon as I know, I will put the word out. Yeah, but it is coming. It has been creeping up a bit. I think that's part with the dollar weakening against the euro and the Swiss franc and the complicated way they're working the price out. But it is imminent.
Okay.
I know that's not much useful information, is it? I want to know because I will be scraping every account empty and I'll be loading up before the price increase. No, I didn't talk to in German. Scarlett's English is incredibly good. It makes me feel a bit inadequate that my German studies did not go very far when I was at school.
Oh, at least you had a decent teacher. Mine was horrible. I had this one professor. He never got his. I don't. He says he was a master's. I don't know. Sometimes I think he was a charlatan, but he was from Austria, so he spoke fluent German. And when he gave a test, it was so weird. And you had to answer in German in essay form. And every time I went back to him, I said, well, this is actually correct, and you labeled it wrong. He would find more things wrong and drop my grade even further, each and every time. And I got into the class because we had this thing called intersession. We had 4 months of a regular semester, 4 months of the second semester, and then 1 month in the middle they called intersession. And during the intersession, I took this linguistics class with this same professor, and I really aced it with there, so I decided I was going to take German with him. Big mistake. And I had to basically lie to him to get through the class. Because if he thought that you weren't going to take any more classes from him, he wasn't going to give you a good grade. So, and in retrospect, I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have taken the class. I should have taken Russian, so considering who I got married to. But that, the lack of wisdom from the youth. But no, your German is probably way better than mine. So, but enough of me and my stories. So I'm thinking we'll bring this to a close. We'll bring Ian back up on another day. Let him go have dinner with his wife.
I will just answer Neil's question there. So yes, we could handle an order of the 2mm squares. That is approaching a conflict of supply because when it is tokenized, there will be a huge purchase of 2mm squares. So I did talk to Scarlett about that today, Neil, and I think from the way the conversation went, they will always supply ARC as a priority, even if there is a huge multi-million order for the 2mm squares.
That's awesome.
So I am trying to build up a reserve of them, but it sells really well. I have so many existing silver bullion clients. They say, give me X amount of osmium, and okay, and then suddenly I'm nearly out again. So
let me ask you a question before we get hung up on.
Sure.
Okay, you did a really good box setup for Tuli, and she showed an excellent video showing off the products she got from you. I don't want to get into with Tooley's business, but if I had a box of similar nature, would you tell me about how much I got to put away to get a box of osmium that I can keep in my stack and try to get it to a point where I can keep that, so it wouldn't be my first or second tier of using towards SHTF, but if I was getting lower on gold and silver, I might use that to sell back to get more gold and silver under SHTF. So that's why I'm looking at the possibility of putting osmium into the stack for the reason I just mentioned. So I just was kind of curious, how affordable is such a box? And I don't want you to give away Tooley's stuff, but give me a ballpark answer what I'm looking at.
No. It's the investment boxes, they are designed to hold 40 pieces. I've got a little one here I did have earlier. Oh, I did have a box out on the desk. I'm not sure where I've put it. So I think we showed them before, they come in little, oh, here we go. So they come, okay. instead of coming in these packs, they come in these little glass tubes.
Okay.
So they pass on the saving of less packaging costs. So it is a more affordable way of buying the smaller pieces, and it was originally aimed at jewelers who are using multiple pieces of the same size, like the 3mm diamonds, the 2mm squares, 3mm squares. I think that's a 3mm triangle, Neil. I don't know.
The box in my mind makes more sense because it takes up less space. It's one of the reasons I don't. Let me bring you up here, Big. The box works more for me because I'm not a big fan of slabbed anything. I'm not a huge slab gold or slab silver.
Yeah.
Because of the amount of space it takes up. So if I bought a bunch, I like the idea of being in the box because it takes up less space on the shelf.
Yeah, they come in a box this size. That holds 40. That has a lot of package. That holds 40 of these little tubes. Give you that's an iPhone Max long box.
Yeah, that's a whole lot less space.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to keep them in the box. You can put 40 of these in a bag if you wanted to.
No, I'd keep it in the box.
Yeah, but that's a more economical way. There is a discount for buying them in these tubes that way. Yeah.
Yeah,
and you don't have to buy 40. You can specify a dollar amount, and then they will fill your box to that amount, and then they'll round it up with another piece of osmium.
Okay.
So, I mean, obviously, you never know exactly, but you should always get a bit more osmium than you actually paid for that way.
Okay.
Oh, that's interesting, Neil. He says a metal detector cannot read crystallized osmium. Wow.
Can it read regular osmium?
Crystallized.
No, if it was regular osmium, non-crystallized, can the metal detector recognize?
I don't know. I'm not really interested in the uncrystallized osmium.
I'm just, ask me a question. Where I was making a statement. I'm like, okay.
That is fascinating, Neil, because it's in the crystalline form. It's in its densest form. Interesting. So if a metal, oh my gosh, that's a bit scary, isn't it? Anyway, I'm not going to say what I'm thinking. Anyway, so no, ignore that thought.
Understood.
Yeah.
Okay, so like I said, we're gone past 10.
But you have zero worry about it tarnishing. It will not tarnish. It's the most inert element or compound or substance in the crystalline form. It just will not react with anything.
So you can't use it as a catalyst for something else.
I doubt it. Well, I mean, the technical definition of a catalyst, it helps a reaction happen, but it doesn't get consumed in the reaction.
Correct.
So it might have catalytic properties.
Okay.
I mean, that, from what I understand, isn't that the actual definition of a catalyst? It doesn't get used in the reaction.
It lowers the threshold.
It enables
reaction.
It enables the reaction to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what platinum and palladium does with gasoline.
It might have some very interesting catalytic properties. I do know I've been asked many times, what is its frequency? I have no idea. I don't even know how you would find that out.
Okay.
So that's interesting, Neil. You can bury it and no one will find it at a metal detector. Wow.
Nor can you if you forget where you put it. So, let's see here.
There we go. Thank you, Neil, for the full definition there. It's left unchanged at the end of the process.
Exactly.
That's what I thought. So it could have some incredible catalytic properties. It could have incredible frequencies. I do know when I'm wearing the watch, I feel good. It's a feel-good, sparkly watch. So,
you got osmium in it?
It's an osmium disc. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm going to bring this to a close. Let Ian get back to the wife. I took a little longer than what I intended to. And it wasn't as long as when we did that long one. I was trying to build hours to keep from losing my monetization. Which,
Well,
by the way, I'm so grateful for.
We got you there.
Yeah, you all did, and I'm very grateful for that. So, I can't thank you enough for that particular day, or even today. So anyway, I'm going to bring this all to a close. I really thank all of you for coming, and I really had a great time. I believe Ian did too, but he can speak for himself.
I did, thank you, and safe journey to your next locum hospital.
It's going to be the same one.
Is it?
Yeah, they're trying to get me to go to a few different places. They want to get me to 2 places in New Mexico, one in Oregon, one in Minnesota, one in Kentucky. I'm hearing maybe Connecticut, but the big one they want me at is where I'm currently at in New Mexico. So, my wife, God love her, she bought me an anniversary gift. You ever see those big pillows that people wear in the airplanes?
Yep.
Well, this thing looks like that type of horseshoe type of thing, but it's a battery-powered air conditioner, and it's throwing air-conditioned air onto your face.
Wow.
So I'm wondering about taking that to New Mexico because it's hot there. Anyway, I'm going to shut my mouth. Everyone, thank you for coming. Thank you, Ian. And we'll set up another one when it's good for everyone. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone. Thank you, Tiger.
Thank you, Ian. Okay.